Part two, it's really hard down here. Jiddu Krishnamurti once said, "It is no measure of good health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." To make matters worse, I was now starting to see why I had been so messed up. Like, really, really see why. I started connecting the dots and seeing how humans operate and why I felt like I had a hard time developing deep relationships my entire life. I was realizing that behind all the social pretenses, most human connections are transactional and conditional, leaving you face your deepest suffering essentially alone. Now, let me be completely clear here, okay? I'm not dismissing that you're depressed, anxious, or unhappy because there's some simple spiritual explanation. I get that there are countless factors that feed into our depression, such as genetics, brain chemistry, childhood wounds, stacks of traumas, societal pressures, and economic stress. This is a very sensitive topic. I could spend an entire book unpacking it, but I honestly don't even feel qualified to do it justice. I'm not a psychologist. I only played one on Korean TV. My aim here is to offer you a framework from my personal experience that might help you see your darkest moments not as evidence that life is broken, but as proof that you're being forged into something extraordinary. I want to show you a spiritual perspective that, at the very least, is better than believing you're just a meaningless accident stumbling through a purposeless universe that doesn't care about you. You see, that is what depression strips bare, not your brokenness, but the pretense that surrounds us, exposing the hollow promises of belonging that everyone else still believes in. Make no mistake that you are a soul living out a human experience, which, as we'll get into later, is one of the most difficult experiences in the entire universe. It's really hard down here, a teary eyed Shannon told me 2 years after my awakening, her voice breaking during our Zoom call as she felt the weight of Earth's collective suffering. That's why I don't like when someone calls themselves a master, implying I am a master and others aren't. We are all masters down here, just for the sake of even being quote unquote allowed to incarnate here. This isn't a place for any new or developing souls to come. This is a master class to end all master classes. For starters, we're drowning in expert advice that adds up to a mathematical impossibility. The meditation guru insists you need an hour of daily practice for inner peace. The entrepreneur swears by an 80-hour work week for success. Your therapist recommends 15 minutes of journaling for mental health. Your personal trainer demands 45 minutes of exercise. The nutritionist wants you to spend 30 minutes meal planning. The relationship coach suggested at least an hour quality time with your partner. And you need at least an hour a day with your kids so they don't grow up being YouTube addicted, therapy dependent, parent resenting monsters. Or worse, you. Stack it all together, and you're short about 1,176 hours every day just to keep up with all the recommended things to do in life. It's absolutely maddening. They tell us to find balance. But that's like asking a drowning person to choreograph their own rescue. Not to mention, our exhausted brains are supposed to somehow know which expert to listen to and when, calculating the opportunity cost of every choice. Choose meditation over exercise, and you're neglecting your body. Choose work over relationships, and you're destroying your connections. Choose anything, and you're simultaneously failing at everything else. There's an infinite number of demands, and your brain is expected to juggle them all without collapsing. Meanwhile, social media broadcasts endless proof that everyone else cracked the code we didn't even know existed. Every filtered photo, every highlight reel of peak human achievement whispers, look what you didn't do today, and I did. Back in the old days, a doctor or lawyer could feel proud of serving their town. Now, they're pitted against dozens of peers who are better looking, best selling, and insta famous, flashing 200,000 followers like a scoreboard. To protect your sense of self worth, you have to actively dismiss an endless torrent of comparisons, envy triggers, highlight reels, and cultural expectations. Basically, everything trying to convince you that your accomplishments aren't enough. Every choice becomes a gamble with our future selves, and we're playing with incomplete information while the stakes keep rising. We're told to heal our trauma or suffer the consequences, but new traumas arrive faster than we can process the old ones. We're supposed to eat healthy, but nutrition science changes yearly, and our bodies age and rebel against whatever worked last decade. Every morning becomes a crisis management session, scanning for which area of life is currently under fire. Even vacation becomes another optimization problem where we feel guilty for not maximizing our own relaxation. Our minds assault us with thoughts we never asked for. And the only escape is the very meditation we don't have time for in our impossible schedule. If there's a loving God we feel, you'd think the spiritual path, at the very least, would be straightforward and easy, expecting God to shower us with constant rewards if we choose he over us. Instead, it's an endless series of surrendering attachments we didn't know we had and facing fears we spent our lives avoiding, with a process that can be brutal and relentless, sometimes even increasing our suffering before any benefit comes. Yet, even there, the spiritual is cluttered with contradictory teachings and endless paths, leaving you to wonder which way actually leads home. This book, I hope, aims to shed some light on that journey and make it less tumultuous. To make matters worse, Earth is actively hostile to human life. Nature will kill you with heat, cold, storms, earthquakes, diseases, or predators without any consideration for your hopes or dreams. So we've imprisoned ourselves in artificial environments, hiding behind walls and air conditioning, creating sterile bubbles that protect us from the world that wants us dead, including other humans who might rob, assault, cheat on, manipulate, imprison, or even murder us, given the opportunity. Nothing worth having comes without suffering. Physical health requires deliberately damaging your body through exercise until it adapts or breaks. Wealth is statistically unlikely, with most people burning themselves out chasing a financial security they'll never reach. Yet we see endless examples of how the lucky few who made it, convincing us that if we just keep grinding, that ugly word that makes you feel like a machine, we too can succeed. And even those that do succeed are often wildly despondent. When you look at those that supposedly reach the pinnacle of all we strive for, endless riches, fame, power, they're actually the most miserable. And you can see it when you watch their actions. It's obvious. Contemporary awake teacher David Parrish said, the suffering is even worse for them because they are left feeling, okay, I did it all. Now what? Why am I still unhappy? There is nowhere else to go. No more to achieve because they've already achieved everything they set out to do. That's a horrible place of existential confusion to be in. It's why so many in that position kill themselves. And yet that is what we're supposed to be striving for? That's crazy. We're intimately aware of every possible way to die horribly, from cancer eating us alive to accidents that leave us broken and bleeding. Yet we maintain the delusion that these fates belong to other people. The foundation of our existence is built on mass murder. We cannot survive without killing other living beings, whether animals that once had thoughts and feelings or plants that were grown towards sunlight. Every bite of food represents a life that we ended to fuel our own continued existence, making us all serial killers by biological necessity. It's crazy, isn't it, when you think about it? So it gets worse. Our information systems are designed to traumatize us. News outlets compete to deliver the most disturbing content possible, flooding our minds with detailed accounts of human suffering, torture, and brutality. This constant exposure to humanity's worst impulses, mixed with pressures from social media, has convinced an exponentially increasing number of people, even teenagers, the age when life is supposed to be its most carefree and unburdened, that ending their own lives is preferable to continuing in a world that's this damaged, where every choice feels impossible and every day brings relentless comparison and judgment. Perhaps one of the biggest cruelties of life is that a single traumatic experience can destroy decades of accumulated happiness in moments. While even the most profound, joyful experience, outside that of resting permanently as our true being, barely makes a dent in chronic misery. Most of us spend our days and nights physically inactive, on seats or lying down, slowly deteriorating, forced to mask our genuine despair because no one likes being around a depressed person or complainer. It also doesn't get many likes or followers. Reality is camouflaged behind endless layers of deception. Social media filters hide physical flaws. Advertisements sell impossible promises. And everyone wants something from you while pretending otherwise. There's a constant fog between what is real and what is curated, And now AI is increasingly taking over everyone's jobs, including creative work, one of the few abilities humans once held as uniquely theirs, leaving even less we can trust or rely on. There's no instruction manual for existence, no proven formula for meaning or happiness. We're frantically trying to optimize an existence we don't understand, using tools that probably don't work, racing against time that never slows down. It's a never ending game of whack a mole with two options to strike our mallet at: chasing pleasure and avoiding pain. America has engineered the perfect loneliness machine. We've systematically destroyed every space where human connection naturally occurred, replacing community with consumption, and wonder why everyone feels so isolated. We've created structures of strip malls and suburbs where many of the public gathering spaces are designed to extract money, not foster relationships. Nobody goes outside anymore. Children are shuttled between air conditioned cars and climate controlled buildings, spending exponentially rising amounts of time on smartphones and video games. Adults commute in isolation pods, work in cubicles, then retreat to private homes where they stream entertainment. The idea of spontaneous encounters with neighbors has become foreign, almost suspicious. Community membership has collapsed across every category: bowling leagues, religious congregations, civic organizations, hobby clubs, and volunteer groups. The social infrastructure that once connected strangers through shared interests and values has withered. We've replaced in person gatherings with digital substitutes that simulate connection while delivering isolation. The nuclear family was supposed to be enough, but it's a brittle foundation. When family relationships fail or family members die, people are left with no backup social network. Previous generations had multiple overlapping communities that could provide support when the family couldn't. Now, we put all our relational eggs in one basket, and when that basket breaks, people face complete social exile. And work, it used to provide community, but corporate culture can turn colleagues into competitors. Remote work, while offering flexibility, has eliminated even these weak social ties. We've optimized for efficiency and profit while accidentally destroying the informal social bonds that made work bearable. The result is hundreds of millions of people living parallel lives, physically close but emotionally unreachable, scrolling through social media for the connection they can't find in physical reality. This is human suffering for those of us not in our true being, which is the vast majority of us. Look at it this way. If life were a poker game, no rational person would ever sit down at the table and play. But here we are, forced to play with cards we didn't choose and rules that shift without warning. Some players start with towers of chips inherited from previous players, using their stack to bully smaller players out of every meaningful pot. Others begin with nothing but pocket lint, forced to play perfectly just to survive the blinds, knowing that even one mistake could wipe them out completely. The pit boss can tap you on the shoulder at any moment and make you leave, regardless of whether you're holding the best hand or finally caught that miracle river card. You see other players being forced to leave just minutes after they sit down, and some who are there for hours. It doesn't make any sense. The most frustrated players spend their entire session arguing with the pit boss about the unfairness of it all, asking why the game is so rigged and confusing, eventually storming off and quitting early when they realize no one's listening. The entire table has devolved into a constant stream of complaining and moaning. Players can't just fold a bad hand quietly. They need to announce to everyone how terrible their cards were, how the shuffle was obviously rigged, how they never get decent starting hands like everyone else apparently does. Every lost pot becomes a story that must be shared with neighboring players, complete with a detailed analysis of exactly how unfair it all was. The negative energy becomes contagious. One player's complaint about their luck sparks another player's rant about the blinds being too high, which triggers someone else's theory about how the deck is marked or the dealer is incompetent. Instead of focusing on playing better, everyone's focused on cataloging their grievances and finding other players to commiserate with about how impossible the game has become. Everyone knows that even if they manage to build a massive chip stack, they'll eventually have to return every chip back to the house. No one wins the game. There's nothing to win. A lucky few seem to get dealt premium hands every round, while the majority of players stare down at 7 deuce offsuit, hand after hand, watching their blinds get eaten alive as they wait for something, anything playable. The worst part is being told to play smart and find balance, as if a player's exhausted brain can calculate perfect pot odds while the deck keeps changing mid deal. Every choice becomes a brutal opportunity cost. Fold this mediocre hand to wait for something better, or play it and risk your remaining stack. Meanwhile, you're watching the highlight reel of other players at other tables hitting impossible straights and royal flushes, making you question every decision you've ever made. Whether you choose to quit or are forced out, there isn't a lot of clarity as to whether you are forced to come back and play over and over again, or you are told you get one shot at playing. And if you don't play your cards right, then the pit boss will punch you in the stomach for eternity. I can already hear the pushback. But what about love? What about joy? What about beauty and connection and all the wonderful things in life? And yes, those moments exist. They're real and they matter. But let's be brutally honest about the actual math of our emotional lives. How much of your waking hours are you genuinely feeling joy versus just existing? How often do you wake up immediately with dread and anxiety about what fires the day will inevitably bring? How often are you experiencing profound love compared to scrolling through your phone in a mild haze of boredom? When was the last time you felt truly connected to another human being versus the last time you felt stressed about money, work, or health? Most of our lives aren't spent in the depths of despair, but they're not spent in bliss either. We exist in this gray middle ground of mild anxiety, low level frustration, and background worry, punctuated by brief, fleeting moments of genuine happiness. We're not sobbing into our pillows every night, but we're also not dancing with joy every morning. The beautiful sunset lasts 20 minutes. The stress about tomorrow's meeting lasts all evening. The moment of connection with a friend gets overshadowed by hours of work emails. The vacation high fades within days of returning to routine. We remember the peaks and valleys, but we live in the mundane middle where most emotions hover somewhere between fine and tired. Even our happiest moments are often tinged with awareness of their temporary nature. You're laughing with your friends while simultaneously knowing that evening will end. You're holding someone you love while part of your brain may be calculating how much time you have left together. The joy is real, but it's seasoned with the knowledge that it won't last. This isn't pessimism, it's accounting. When you honestly tally up your emotional hours, instead of just remembering highlights, the math becomes uncomfortably clear. Many say they're not miserable, but they're not exactly thriving either. We're all mostly just getting through it. When you ask someone in the street how they're doing, I'm surviving. I'm getting through it. I'm all right. Doesn't really sound like a spark of joy, does it? This is the sheer impossibility of life. And this was shown to me both in one of my somatic consciousness experiences, as well as my near-death experience, which I'll talk about later. This is why I became an anti-natalist for years during my suffering. It didn't help me mentally, but I at least found others who were feeling the same way I did about life. It's, again, extremely hard to logically argue with them when thinking of bringing a child into existence. First of all, you're not just having a child, they say. You're having an adult who will struggle with depression, addiction, chronic pain, anxiety, aging, and having to face the terror of death. The child didn't ask to be born here. The parents chose them to be plopped into this world without their permission. There's no truly non-selfish reason to have a child, they argue, since every justification traces back to what the parents want. The self. That's why it's selfish. They didn't ask the child's permission. They did it because they wanted it. And if you truly believe in eternal damnation, how could you justify creating a soul that might spend forever in torment? If a genie told me there was definitely a doggy hell and offered to erase my dog's existence rather than risk him burning forever for misbehaving despite my training efforts, I would take that deal instantly. Now multiply that love by 1,000 for your child. Yet children don't grow up to follow their parents' religious beliefs or values all the time. And there are infinite societal influences and traumas that can lead them to become heroin addicts, suicidal widows, deadbeat parents, or worse. Furthermore, If you claim to love Earth and animals, bringing another human into existence is environmental sabotage of the highest order. That child will become an adult who will then consume countless animals and plants, generate a carbon footprint for 80 plus years, and actively contribute to the systematic destruction of ecosystems, whether they are cognizant of it or not. They don't have a choice. Humans are objectively the worst thing that has ever happened to this planet. We're the only species that destroys while being fully conscious of our devastation. So you're telling me, anti-natalists say, the more humans are a good thing? It's like when you're stuck in traffic and complaining, and yet forgetting that you are also contributing to the traffic. And when natalists argue procreation is natural, they're abandoning the very reason that separates us from other animals. It might be natural for me to punch my boss when he fires me, but I don't do it because I can't think beyond my instincts. We evolved beyond acting on every biological drive. We simply evolved beyond it. And the pain and seeming impossibility of life go even further when we include the vast array of invisible forces shaping every person's path. Karmic influences, samskaras, vasanas, and soul contracts with predetermined lessons and hardships, to name a few. Ancient traditions, shamans, energy healers, and enlightened ones have understood these metaphysical realities and imprints for a long time, recognizing that countless unseen factors drive human behavior. And as if that list wasn't long already, there are dark astral forces actively sabotaging human consciousness and trying to keep us trapped in despair and anguish.